Welcome to 99% Geek Presents, a weekly geeky blog. I am your host and writer behind 99geek.ca, Andrew Geczy. As primarily a fiction writer, releasing chapters of my books in weekly chunks on my Patreon, like episodes of TV shows when I'm not trying to make ends meet in what feels like a poverty nightmare, I wanted my brand, 99% Geek, to offer more content than just my writing, pulling from my many interests and passions. I don't have much to offer in the way of talent besides my writing, but I'm passionate about pop culture and try to keep myself as up to date on politics, science, and art as I can. Being a huge TV nerd, I run down the best shows of the week, go over all the major news headlines for people who have maybe gotten too tired to follow regular news, and breaking it down and explaining it for people who might feel unable to follow along. And before anything else, I spotlight something cool and geeky for the week. Remember, you can follow along by going to patreon.com/99geek. This is Geekly Weekly number 95 for the week of Friday, April 23rd. And this week's highlight is Mortal Kombat. I am releasing this a little later than usual this Friday because I decided to watch both Falcon and Winter Soldier and Mortal Kombat before putting out the Geekly Weekly. I didn't think this will work. I don't think this will work great moving forward, though. I hate that it's basically taking me all day. I'm now writing this at nearly 6 p.m. and I'm recording this at 7:38. Ooh, that's painful. Like the sun's about to go down. I haven't even really begun a day yet, so that sucks. So I'm gonna be changing how I do this in the future. I think what the plan is going forward is that I'm gonna start releasing my Geeky Weeklies every Saturday morning instead of Friday morning. That way, I don't need to worry about anything coming out suddenly that I haven't watched yet. Things don't usually release on the weekends, so that'll make that a little easier. I'll be able to cover everything of the past week on the weekend um, without having to delay the release of the podcast or anything like that. So from now on, I'll be releasing Saturday morning, and then because of that, my writing will be pushed forward as well. So from now on, my writing will release on Monday mornings, and that will start right away. So Princess Miranda, the last part of that chapter, will release on Monday morning instead of Sunday morning. So if you're into my writing, look forward to that being a little late. I'm glad I got the chance to watch this movie first, so I can be the first to tell you that all the reviews for the movie are correct. It's not great. It's actually rather disappointing, not because it's necessarily a terrible movie, but I certainly expected it. I wanted it to be more, and it definitely was disappointing. The writing leaves a lot to be desired. The directing is great at hand-to-hand combat, but lazy most everywhere else. There is things in the movie to enjoy. There might even be enough there to call it good. That is to say, the action visuals are fantastic. Some of the performances are fine, but so much of the movie is people saying the most expository of lines in front of a green screen while other people don't emote. So many scenes in Outland where it's like, where in Outland? Why? What were they doing? What the fuck is going on? This whole shit is so lazy and bullshit. Every scene, every scene with Shang Tsung was just awful, and I felt so bad for the actor who had to play Shang Tsung because his lines were all awful, and he had nothing interesting to say. Um, his especially like the second scene you see him where it's in the same location as the first scene. Who the fuck knows where that is or what the hell they're doing? And he just like says everyone's name as if like like introducing them even though they all know each other's name already. So it was for nobody's benefit. And then that was the entire scene. And it's so bad. The whole movie is so bad. Like there's all these little choices they make that are awful. Like there's one scene where this character's like, I'm gonna have to find Sonya Blade, and it does it in this way where like we don't know who that is yet, but then it cuts to this woman walking the desert. It's like, oh, so this has got to be Sonya Blade. It's like I know it's not because I know what Sonya Blade looks like, and it was obviously not Sonya Blade, and it wasn't. But the way that they did the crossfade, it was like obviously they were trying to in filmmaking speech. It would have been to imply that that person was Sonya Blade, and it would have been done really well if that was what they had done. And instead, it was just like, what are they doing? Like it was just like they were so lazy and didn't even know what they were doing or the language of filmmaking really besides action scenes, like they were good when it came to the fighting and that was it. Anything outside of that, putting those fight scenes together in a cohesive way and telling a cohesive story, they just flummished that completely and just dropped the ball, fumbled it, didn't know what they were doing. Somebody on Twitter responded to something I said and suggested that to them it felt like Power Rangers. That whenever the villains spoke, it felt like they were just watching Power Rangers villains speak, and it was like, yeah, no, I can see that. I honestly could. Um, but not. In a way, it's Power Rangers with a lot more gore, but that's not. There's not even all that much more gore really than what you see in the previews. The movie is short, and spoiler: the tournament never happens. This is very much a prequel setting up a bigger story, and thank God for that, because if they tried to fit a full tournament into the runtime we have here, it would have been awful. As it is, that was one of the few good choices they made, was not actually doing the tournament and instead just kind of being a setup for the tournament. Is it better than the 1995 movie? It's actually hard to say. In some ways, sure. In the violence, yeah, but in enjoyment, nah, not even close. If you're interested in the franchise and the universe, I'd wait till they release hopefully an improved sequel, and then maybe this movie can be like the Godzilla one of the franchise, a lame duck misstep with some good promise of awesome things to come. Like there's awesome things in the movie, and there are moments in the movie that I was watching, I was like, "What?" Like the moment where the hat dude cuts the one chick in half. It's like, what? Like that was pretty intense. And there are other moments like that that are like, what? But that's pretty much all the movie has going for it. If you're looking forward, if you want just some over the top gore and action, and just be like, what? Then there's maybe 20 minutes of that in an hour and a half runtime in a reasonably short movie that is a lot of just dumb, pointless plotting dialogue and nonsense and just crap. Um, yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't awful. It was just not what it could have been, and that was too bad. I could have written a better movie. And after reading what the writer did to get the job, it really makes me feel like I'm just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and both me and Hollywood are suffering because of it. If only I could let them know I'm ready to write for them. Next month, I'm going to start looking for agents for that very purpose, using this site as proof that I have what it takes. Feel free to comment or contact me with any advice or opinions. I would appreciate it. Maybe like how to spell advice with a C and not an S. Moving on from there to the Geekly Weekly TV rankings. Starting at the bottom with Black Lightning at 1.5 stars. I was really bored throughout this whole episode. By the way, I gave Mortal Kombat 2 stars, even though I don't usually review movies like that, but I thought I would for this one situation. Anyway, Geekly rankings. Ranking of all the shows I watch, so you can know how best to use your TV watching time. Black Lightning. Don't watch that. It was better than say last week, but even then I only really enjoyed myself when Tobias was on screen. Watching the body cam footage of Jeff getting his house ransacked was a joy, but the rest of the episode was plotting and boring, sort of like Mortal Kombat. And whatever. The action scene at the end came out of nowhere, as did this random new villain. I honestly think I might just drop the show next week. I just don't want to. I haven't dropped a Marvel or DC show yet, ever, except for Lucifer and Constantine, and in both cases I've heard it was a mistake. So there you go. I don't know. I don't know about Black Lightning. It's rough, but it's also coming to an end. So if I could just hold on for a few more episodes, then it'll be over and I can breathe a sigh of relief. I don't know. I might just drop it. I'm certainly not going to watch whatever spinoff they're trying to get together. Moving on from there to number 11 on the list, Kung Fu at 3 stars. I think in some ways this was the strongest and weakest episode of the show so far. It certainly helped to make clear the show's obvious flaws, but there was still as usual stuff to enjoy. The lead actress continues to be great, but the show they've built around her, it's obvious they wanted it to treat Asian culture with respect. However, I can't help but feel like instead of breaking all the worn Asian stereotypes and tropes, it's just steering headlong into them instead. The restaurant, the sweatshop, the hard-ass mom, the doctor brother, the sister with some sexual assault secret, it never ends. This show just plain isn't very strong despite the chemistry of its cast. And that's too bad. It could be so much more than what it is, but it's not. Supergirl, number 10 on the list. Supergirl with 3 stars. This was a fine episode of Supergirl with enjoyable moments and cringe-worthy moments. I feel like it was right on par with the rest of the season, which has felt pretty milquetoast but unoffensive. I do find myself yelling at the TV every episode and posting sarcastic observations on Twitter quite a lot, but I can't say I'm not enjoying myself. Maybe not all the time. Some of it is boring and melodramatic, and the story is going nowhere, and the motivation of the characters are just all over the place, but it's still fun and silly, and still really And I so really hope Lena and Kara will be lesbians for each other before we're done. It's true, I do. I really do. I think that they would both be happier if they just admit that they're wild, madly in love with each other. I mean, there was one point when Supergirl first revealed that she was Supergirl Lena, and then it was like, awesome, now you can like fly around the world and give me coffee and shit from the most expensive coffee shop in the world or whatever. And it was just like, come on, you wouldn't be doing this for anyone unless you were like madly in love with them. Anyway, it's funny because reading all the criticisms I have for Black Lightning, Kung Fu, and Supergirl, it's sort of like Mortal Kombat was right in like that mix where it was like the things that are wrong with these shows are kind of what was wrong with Mortal Kombat as well, and the things that they do right kind of, no, I can't even say that really, but up the gore obviously, but still like I feel like all of these shows could probably do with just lessons on um, not being so lazy. Moving on from there to number 9 on the list, The Goldbergs is 3 stars. And I mean, that's not to say that I'm that much better. I'm sure some of you probably read my or listen to my writing and say like, you're really gonna be one to talk. Your writing stinks or whatever. I don't know, but I don't think my writing's great or anything. Like it's probably only worth 3 stars on this scale. I've said that before, and I'll say that again. I don't think my writing's necessarily worth more than 3 stars at its best, but I mean, I'm always trying to improve and get better. And I think I can be pretty lazy sometimes too. So I'm not saying I'm perfect. I don't exactly make 5 star writing all the time, which things don't have to be 5 stars all the time either. I mean, I still watch all these shows despite them having flaws. So, and I still watch Mortal Kombat. I think it has value, but it could have been so much better. Just as a lot of these shows could be so much better. The Goldbergs at number 9, also with 3 stars. It was an average episode of the show, frustrating in the ways frustrating in the ways the character didn't learn from all the previous times they made all the same mistakes. I don't know which character I'm talking about there. Uh, Sometimes I try to not be too specific because I feel like this is specifics bog down this show, of this blog, for people who don't watch these shows. But then on the other hand, if I'm not specific at all, then I don't remember what the hell I was talking about because the Goldbergs is what, Wednesday. It's freaking Friday now. That's like 3 days later. Yeah, it's all trying to remember. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember. There was something to do with I want to say Murray. Oh yes, Murray had a summer home, and again, well, the point I say in this is that the A plot and the B plot were by the numbers, not that great, and what made this Goldberg's episode worth anything at all was just the side jokes and the funny side humor, which is the same with Family Guy, which is further up on the list. But the Goldbergs and Family Guy seem to have similar strengths and weaknesses, where they seem to be really lazy when it comes to plot development and all that, or character development, really, which is especially frustrating in the Goldbergs. But then they keep knocking out of the park when it comes to random side gags and silly asides so it's an episode that keeps me frustrated, but I'm still enjoying myself and laughing the whole time. And so yeah, that's why it's number 9 on the list with 3 stars. Moving on from there to number 8 on the list, The Nevers is 3.5 stars. It was fine, and by that I mean, did I not include? Oh, that's interesting. I did watch Home Economy, whatever. I thought I wrote a review for it. And I'm like, there's no way it's higher than these things, but it wasn't that great anyway. It would have gotten low. And then maybe just higher. I think 2 stars. It would have been a 2 star. I think it was a 2 star show. I don't know what happened to it. But I'll probably just drop that too. I'll drop that and Black Lightning from the list, so I won't be watching either of those moving forward. Moving on from there, number 8 on the list, The Nevers, with 3.5 stars. Sorry, I got distracted. It was fine, and by that I mean it was perfect. It must be so hard to just listen to this, and you're just like, it's 2 hours of me just rambling, just nonsense rambling with my mind going all over the place. I'm ADD, so that probably comes through. I don't have anyone to like keep me focused or anything like that, or to bounce off of. I would have a co-host if I had, friends or anything. Anyway, number 8 on the list, The Nevers, 3.5 stars. It was fine, and by that I mean it was perfectly enjoyable-ish, if a bit by the numbers. I wasn't at all surprised when the wheelchair lady turned out to be evil at the end. I thought she was rather cold in the premiere, and then in episode 2 she had that whole scene where her brother earlier, that I just couldn't see she had that whole scene with her brother earlier, that afterwards I just couldn't see myself sympathizing with her. I still only really like the two leads and think they should totally be lesbians with each other. I want lesbians on every show, okay? Leave me alone. Especially when they're gonna just throw it in our faces like that and have them constantly flirt with each other and have sexual tension. I'm gonna want it. I'm gonna want it. Which the show is trying to say is foolishness, that I want them to be lesbians because it keeps having them flirt with all kinds of men, but then they also flirt with each other. It's beyond flirting with each other. They have this like deep love and respect for each other that's just, oh, it's intense. Um, but I think it's bullshit that they're trying to push them on men, and I think they should just embrace their feelings for one another, just like Lena and Supergirl. There were things to enjoy about this episode, but I felt my attention start to waver and couldn't, in good conscience, give it 4 stars. I kind of, even though I kind of still feel like it deserves 4 stars. Moving on to Family Guy, that did get 4 stars. As usual, this episode had a weak premise. That is to say, I found it hard to buy that they were mistaken as young and hip. That's Lois and Peter. Oh, and this was all the way a week ago, so memory. Of course, the rest of the episode was fun playing off of that very outrageous concept, but it still made confusing direction for the episode to go in. As usual, the strongest aspect of this episode was a plethora of side gags, just like with the Goldbergs, and I didn't stop laughing throughout the runtime. Funnier than the Goldbergs, just more laughs per minute, which is easier for an animated program generally. Moving on from there to number 6, Mayor of Easttown with 4 stars. I'm split on this show. Part of me feels like it should switch places with Batwoman, as certainly the performances are strong and this show succeeds at touching on some strong themes. Batwoman, by the way, is above it. That said, I almost fast forwarded through this episode, bored as I was early on, and as turned off as I continued to be by much of the characters. The characters are just not very likable. This is the kind of show where every character is an unlikable piece of shit, in fact. And the only character who was at all engaging and sympathetic was found naked and dead at the bottom of the bridge by the end of the episode. So that happened. It was bleak, but also fascinating in its depiction of the intertwinings of a small town. And I think that's where the most value and strength can be drawn from this show, so far anyway. I ended up being glad I didn't skip it, compelled in fact to keep watching, but I wouldn't say I necessarily enjoyed most of my time with this show. And I am a fan of the noir genre, so it's weird that I'm so turned off by this. I think it's just the character is so unlikable. Moving on from there to number 5 on the list, Batwoman with 4.5 stars. A good episode of Batwoman this week. I especially enjoyed the driving action scene. I thought it was well done. The stuff with Black Mask was good, and the back and forth between them at the end, when he had Sophie, held a decent amount of gravitas. I'm not sure how we're supposed to read his relationship with Batwoman's ex. I don't think we're talking about Black Mask and that. Oh yes, no, we are talking about Black, but we're not talking about a real relationship. We're talking about their relationship professionally. That is how complicit is she with everything? Also, this episode is missing Mary, but the stuff with Alice and the weird psychiatrist lady was fun and ended in a silly CW way. All in all, I can't say it was the strongest episode, but it was enjoyable to watch, like some really tasty smut. A juicy dollar store romance novel, and after a rough weekend, it was a nice relief. I may have granted an extra half a star for just cheering me up. So just as I docked half star for another show boring me, I believe that was The Nevers. Um, I when I felt like The Nevers probably deserved better, but it was kind of boring, so I docked it a mark. I gave Batwoman an extra half a grade, even though I felt like it probably didn't deserve it because it is kind of dumb and smutty. But if it's fun, I feel like that's worth so much more. That's part of Mortal Kombat's problem, in fact. Um, and Mare of Easttown is just in between that, sort of also kind of could have been better if it was more enjoyable, but and probably deserved to be higher than Batwoman because it is a better show, but alas, thus is my ranking, and it stands forever. Moving forward from there to number 4 on the list with The Fear of the Walking Dead at 5 stars. So we're at 5 stars now. These shows are shows that are if not flawless, then they at least are so strong that the flaws don't matter. With Fear the Walking Dead, this episode was amazing. This episode is better than the entire last season of The Walking Dead combined. I was worried that the quality of last week was a fluke and they had sacrificed long term strength for a sudden and shocking twist death. That said, this episode was super engaging and compelling. It was well directed, characters had strong motivations, and the scenes were intense and gripping. The episode also had a few really good twists, proving that the twist from last episode wasn't a one-time thing. Finding out that Dakota is Virginia's daughter and not her sister was crazy. And then that death at the end was also crazy. Another surprising death. This episode was incredible. And this season so far has been incredible. And in a way, I think the strong episodes of Walking Dead almost prove that a show can not be in quote unquote enjoyable in what because I mean I feel like some people might be like, well, you're judging things unfairly based on like action punchy or jokey or like you're rating things like you're a teenage kid and also your writing is fan fiction, and why would this theoretical person still be paying attention to any of this? But theoretical person, I think my enjoyment of Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead proved that if something is quality, then that quality shines through regardless. And Fear the Walking Dead has been pure quality lately, and I've been really enjoying it, and I think other people would enjoy it too. Moving on to the top three on the list. Bum 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 bum. Warning, two of them are Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Starting at number three, Falcon and the Winter Soldier with 5.5 stars. This was the episode last week. This was yet again another great episode of the show, with some of the people behind the show insisting this was the best episode yet. I wouldn't go that far, and despite there being the best superhero fight we've had all series, I thought this episode was lighter on action than most. They got the action out of the way early with an awesome three-way fight for the shield against the now berserk Captain America. It was a really great fight, not as good as the one against Iron Man, despite it obviously trying to be with a much smaller scale. It was pretty enjoyable. What followed was a long episode of Sam talking to people and trying to come to terms with whether or not he should be Captain America, and then he builds a boat, and Bucky helps, and their friendship grows, and it's nice and chill, and they play catch with the shield, and Sam practices and does some running. For having such a crazy action-packed first 5 minutes, the remaining 40 minutes were actually quiet and chill, but never not compelling. This episode was slower than expected, but that didn't make it bad. So even though it's third on the list, it still got a full 5 stars, and I still think it was fantastic and great. I just thought Invincible was better. And quite honestly, I expected Invincible to be number one on the list. I expected the finale of Falcon and the Winter Soldier to just kind of be underneath this, and they would just be together at the number two spot. But it ended up being better than that. But Invincible at the number two spot with 5 stars. This episode blew my mind. I mean, I've been vocal about how amazing this show has been every single week, and this episode just took it to a whole nother level. Oh my god. The first episode is pretty normal till the last 5 minutes, and then there's a turn and it goes insane. Well, the turn in this episode happens with 30 minutes left, and the rest of the episode is me staring at the screen with my mouth agape. They did such a good job of escalating and making things so over the top and the stakes so huge. The show is incredible, and if you're not watching it, you are only hurting yourself. And I thought that was going to be easily the first place. And then I watched the Falcon and the Winter Soldier finale today, and I was just like, wow, it did more for me than just. I don't think my mouth was as agape for as much as with Invincible, but I felt other emotions and just. I also felt chills and my eyes watered and tears and I cheered and I screamed, and it was many different emotions. Wow, I thought Invincible would hold the top spot this week, even though I knew I was going to push back the release to cover the of the blog to cover the finale of the show. Invincible was just that good, but this was that good too. Falcon and the Winter Soldier finale, 5 stars, number one. I was really impressed by the way it took story threads I didn't even care about and made me care, and made them matter. I loved Sam as Captain America. I thought he did amazing. I loved the ways he supplemented the shield with his wings. He's different, fights different, and all the action in this episode was great. This episode was everything we've been waiting for. This was a payoff to everything, and it was better than I expected it to be. More touching and engaging. I loved John Walker's role in this episode, that he wasn't just the bad guy. Did I mention how amazing the action looked? The ending with Isaiah Bradley was powerful as well. I'm glad that I didn't save this for next week's ranking. Pitting this against finale of Invincible, which I imagine is also going to blow my mind, would have been only that much harder. But this finale made me feel things and get really excited, and I respect that. This was everything we were building towards and worth every minute of it. I think I said that multiple times. We were building towards this. Seriously, we were building toward it. And now we're building toward the Geekly predictions. That's new releases people will be talking about around the water cooler over the next week. Starting at the top, see, if I had not watched Mortal Kombat before doing this, I probably would have put Mortal Kombat at the top. But instead, at the top of this list, I put Pokemon Snap, which releases next Friday. I normally would have saved Friday releases for the next blog, but since I'm moving things to Saturday now, Friday releases get on the list. So Pokemon Snap is releasing next Friday on Switch. It's a new version of Snap. If you played the version on N64 and remember it fondly, this is going to bring all the classic gameplay, but with new areas and new Pokemon and new experiences and new gameplay features and new graphics and all the new. So for people who are concerned by the name or whatever, it is not just a remake of the old game. It is in fact its own. It is more actually really Pokemon Snap 2 than it is a remake of Pokemon Snap. And Pokemon Snap 1 will still be there. I think I have it on my Wii U, and I was almost wondering if I should pull it out and try to play it. That would be kind of fun. So I might actually do that, maybe. That would be actually some fun before this new one comes out. But I'll figure that out later. So that's Pokemon Snap releasing on Friday. You might want to check that out. It looks pretty fun and exciting and different and weird. And of course, it's not capturing Pokemon the normal way. You're using a camera and stuff. But for people who like that kind of thing, yeah. Moving on from there, number 2 on the list, Without Remorse, is coming out on Amazon on Friday. That's, I believe, Amazon Prime, so it's free for people who have Amazon Prime. This is a movie, but it's in the same universe, I believe, as the TV show, the Jack Ryan TV show with John Krasinski, I believe. So it's like they're making it into like this Amazon Tom Clancy universe. Without Remorse is, instead of it following John Krasinski's character, who is the same character Ben Affleck plays in Some of All Fears, and the same character Alec Baldwin plays in submarine shooty Sean Connery movie, and the same character that Harrison Ford plays in his 2 Tom Clancy efforts. I just can't remember the name of the guy right now. It's John Clark is not the name of the guy. He's the one that's going to be in Without Remorse. It's going to be about the friend of Jack Ryan. Obviously, that's the name of the show. Jack Ryan is the name of he's an analyst and he's not an actiony dude. But John Clark is usually the actiony dude in the books, and so that's usually how it goes. It's Jack. At least I believe they have separate books. I haven't read all of the Tom Clancy books. I've read a number of them, and I was a fan. I've always wanted to read through the whole series. Some they can be a little dense at points, but I kind of like the way that they tell stories differently. And it does feel very authentic and stuff. But so Jack Ryan is a analyst, and what he does is he's the one that figures out the bad things that are happening, and then John Clark is the one that will generally actually lead the team and have the guns and do the shooty stuff and make things explode. John Clark is the action hero, and Jack Ryan is the Ben Affleck in the room being like, he's the one that did the thing, and the nuke's gonna go off, people are gonna die, and we have to stop it. So yeah, that's so yeah. So I don't know what that the community to watch Without Remorse. Maybe start with the Jack Ryan show, or maybe not. I don't even know how that all works. I haven't watched any of the Jack Ryan stuff yet. It's stuff I'm interested in. Maybe we'll get to it at some point. It's pretty high on my list, but I just haven't really gone to it yet. Moving on from there to number 3 on the Geekly predictions, Mortal Kombat is releasing on HBO Max today. And I've watched it and it was fine, and you've already heard the review, so I don't have much more that I need to say. But if you're a fan of the universe, there are worse things to watch. I heard another complaint that it is very much like the cartoon, I guess. The story plays out very similar to the cartoon. I never actually watched the cartoon, but I heard good things about the cartoon. And I believe that could be true. I do feel like Scorpion doesn't have much to do in the movie. Like, he has this whole scene in the beginning, and then he doesn't feature again until the end, where he just randomly shows up and has this cool fight scene at the end. It was like, where were you the whole movie? This should have been a totally different movie, and it could have been done well, but it wasn't. So frustrating. But yeah, Mortal Kombat. People might still be talking about it. If people don't listen to the reviews and give it a chance for themselves. Moving on from there, number four on the list, The Handmaid's Tale is coming out on Hulu on Wednesday. I haven't watched much of I think I watched the first episode of The Handmaid's Tale or parts of it, and I gave up on it. And that was probably a bad idea because it sounds like it's pretty great. I intend to get back to it and watch it at some point. It's not on as high on my list, say, as the Jack Ryan series, but it's there. Um, but yeah, that's coming out on Wednesday. So you don't expect it to be on my Geekly rankings, unfortunately. But it's cool that it exists, and if that's something you're interested in, I think you should watch it because I hear it's awesome. Moving on from there, number five on the list, Shadow and Bone is coming out on Netflix literally today. I've heard good things about this. I've also heard good things about Ben whatchamacallit. Ben Shadow Bone. Ben Barnes? Ben Barnes, that's right. Just before it popped up, I remembered it. I heard Ben Barnes is really good in it, not just Sap, but I've heard that he was fan cast in it long before they actually cast him in the role. And apparently, when he was talking to the director, he literally just like put down a Photoshop picture that a fan did of him as a character and was like, "So you're gonna hire me, right?" Which is funny. I was interested in the show. I just watched the trailer for the first time, and that made me less interested in the show. It just seems like bland, young adult, whatever. But also, it's releasing the whole season at once, which is generally a good way for a show to have me not watch it. I'll put it on my list that includes Jack Ryan, all the other things we've been talking about. And I don't think it's higher than Jack Ryan or The Handmaid's Tale at this point. Good job, Netflix. If it had just released the episodes one at a time, like other things do, then maybe I would have given it a chance now as opposed to just throwing it into a backlog. But Netflix never changes their ways, and that's their problem. Because other shows really benefit, I think, from doing weekly releases, especially all the Disney Plus stuff, making an event every week, and it really, I much prefer that way of releasing content. Much prefer. Moving on from there to number six on the list, that's Rome Total War Remastered is releasing on PC on Thursday. If you're a fan of the Total War series, then you probably already know about this, or you probably already know about Rome Total War. This looks like it's a great remake of that game with better graphics and all that. It looks really pretty from what I saw in the videos. The gameplay is obviously fantastic. If you haven't played a Total War series, it's basically like the Civilization games, but when you have wars break out, then it turns into a real-time strategy game on a field where you get to actually control like thousands and thousands of people and have them crash into each other and fight each other, and it's very over the top and the scale of the battles and things like that, and that's what makes it cool and fun. And this version looks great, and I haven't seen any reviews yet, but I imagine they're gonna be pretty strong. So if you're into strategy games and stuff, you might want to give that a chance. It's Rome Total War Remastered, coming out on Thursday on PC. Moving on from there, Bloodthirsty is coming out on streaming. I don't know where. I just watched the trailer and it wasn't terrible. It went in weird directions, and I didn't know really what it was about. It didn't look that interesting, but it looked like it could be interesting if you're into like a weird werewolf story, or if you're interested in a werewolf story about lesbians. And it's interesting because like the her lesbian girlfriend seems only kind of like it's a story about a girl who turns into a werewolf. It's very much like Ginger Snaps. But then imagine if in Ginger Snaps she also has a girlfriend who has nothing to do with any of it and is really just there being like, I don't like the way that you're turning into a werewolf right now, but I'm still gonna stick with you. And that's just like that seems to be the whole movie. It's like okay, weird, but okay. Um, so that's Bloodthirsty if you're interested in that. I don't know what it's coming out on though. They don't do a good job of explaining that at all in the trailer, at the end of the trailer, or anywhere. So if you can manage to find it, then it might be a fun, interesting horror movie to check out. Honorable mentions, the finale of Invincible is coming out Thursday night on Amazon Prime, and you should check that out. Also, the Oscars is happening on Sunday if you care, but I don't. They lost me when they didn't give Dark Knight Best Picture. So, yeah, you can check out either of those if you want. I would suggest Invincible over the Oscars generally. Moving on from there to the Geekly News headlines. It's news from the past week you need to know, so you won't be as ignorant as a QAnon loser. Starting at the top. You've done nothing wrong. Leaked data shows cops are donating to Kyle Rittenhouse's defense fund. The "you've done nothing wrong" was in quotations. I didn't even know where we were going with that, and that was painful to reach the end of that sentence. This is a story on Vice.com by Paul Bless on April 16th, 2021, or the 16th month of the 4th day. Anyway, Vice.com. If you're going to donate money to accused killers and cops who shot people, maybe don't use your work email, especially if you work for the government and especially if you're a cop. A trove of data released from the #1 free Christian fundraising site GiveSendGo showed several donations from cops and other public employees to the teenage shooter Kyle Rittenhouse, as well as Rustin Shesky, the Wisconsin cop who shot and paralyzed Jacob Black, leading to the protests where Rittenhouse killed 2 people and injured another in Kenosha last August, The Guardian reported Friday. Rittenhouse, 17 at the time, was charged with multiple felonies including reckless homicide and intentional homicide. But his case became a cause celebre for the right, including then-President Trump, and his legal defense raised just under $586,000 on GiveSendGo, far exceeding the $500,000 goal. Multiple attempts to raise money for Rittenhouse on GoFundMe, the most widely used crowdfunding site, were deleted. One anonymous $25 donation to Rittenhouse made on September 3rd of last year was associated with the official email address of Norfolk, Virginia Police Sergeant William Kelly, according to Guardian. God bless. Thank you for your courage. Keep your head up. You've done nothing wrong. This guy literally took a gun to a bunch of protests and just started shooting people. Every rank-and-file police officer supports you, he says. Don't be discouraged by actions of the political class and law enforcement leadership. Well, thank you for giving us all the reason we need to defund the police force. Because if really the police force are all behind and every police officer is behind this dude, then, like, they all need to go and we would be safer without them. Easily, I can say that. At the time, Kelly, a nearly 19-year-old veteran of the Norfolk PD, according to his LinkedIn page, was the officer in charge of the department's K-9 unit. Ugh. He was with the dogs. Last month, according to his LinkedIn, he became the executive officer of internal affairs. He was an IA officer? Seriously? Neither Kelly nor Norfolk PD immediately responded to a Vice News request for comment. So, the executive officer of IA is also a white supremacist and helping to bolster white supremacy in the police force ranks. That is unimaginable. Following the publication of the Guardian story, Norfolk Police Chief Larry D. Boone released a statement saying he was aware of the allegations leveraged against an officer of this department and directed an administrative investigation to ensure department policies and procedures were not violated. Kelly has also been reassigned pending the investigation. I would hope so. Other donations to Rittenhouse came from a paramedic in Utah, a city employee in Huntsville, Alabama, and an engineer at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, a nuclear research facility in California. The engineer, Michael Crossley, donated $100. The laboratory did not immediately respond to a request for comment from Vice News, but told The Guardian it was an honest mistake and that Crossley had never intended to use his lab email on this matter. He's a white supremacist, but, like, he didn't mean to implicate us. Livermore, Director of Public Affairs, Linda Seaver, told Vice News in an email that Crossley was acting on his own and does not speak for the laboratory. I would hope not. It was not his intent to use his lab email. As for Shesky, 32 donations totaling thousands of dollars were made under private email addresses associated with Kenosha cops, using their badge numbers, according to The Guardian. Shesky received several more donations from cops at other Wisconsin police departments, including 2 at the Green Bay Police Department. An official from GBPD told The Guardian that the department is looking into the matter. Shesky not only wasn't charged, but also didn't lose his job. Kenosha Police Chief Daniel Miskinis announced Tuesday that Shesky had returned to duty on March 31st and wouldn't be disciplined. Ugh. Although this incident has been reviewed at multiple levels, I know that some will not be pleased with the outcome. No shit, Miskinis wrote in a statement posted on Twitter. However, given the facts, the only lawful and appropriate decision was made because there's no law against giving money to murderers. Like, even if it was more clear-cut, of which, like, one could argue that the people, the protesters were trying to get the gun away from him, I guess. Like, they were coming at him, and they were, like, grabbing at him when he shot them, so there could be arguments that it was self-defense. But even, let's imagine a scenario in which this is blatant murder, this guy's a blatant murderer, he's John Wayne Gacy, and he's not, but let's say he was John Wayne Gacy, and these people were giving money to his defense. I still don't think that there is a legal cause. Like you'd have to find another grounds in which to deal with him, because you can't necessarily, as a conservative would say, you can't cancel somebody for giving money to whatever cause he chooses, I guess. I'm pretty sure you can't fire a police officer for giving money to a Nazi charity. I'm not sure about that, but I am pretty sure. But anyway, as I say here, need more proof that we should defund the police. How about the fact that the people who run these institutions at the top are evil fascist white supremacist fucks? That's why the shitty have been bolstered and the innocent and moral have suffered time and again. Because I'm not saying that legally we should be allowed to fire these people, but what I am saying is that if these are the people that are running the police, then we should be afraid. We should be very afraid. And defunding the police probably is a safer option than having dangerous people being the ones protecting us as they're killing the ones that they don't deem worthy of protecting. Here's what we know. Moving on. Here's what we know about the suspected Indianapolis FedEx shooter. Because there was apparently another shooting. And I haven't heard much about this. I even forgot it happened again. I think I forgot it happened, and then I read the story, and then I forgot it happened again, and now we're going to read about it again. So here, this is a story on Vice.com by Tess Owen, the 16th month, 4th day, 21 year, no, the 4th month, April 16th, 2021. A 19-year-old named Brandon Hull has been identified as a suspected shooter who left 8 people dead and 5 injured at a FedEx facility near the Indianapolis airport, police said Friday. The suspected shooter allegedly drove to the facility at around 11 p.m. on Thursday night, got out of his car, armed with a rifle, and started shooting. He allegedly killed 4 people outside the facility and another 4 inside before turning the gun on himself. There was no confirmation with anyone there, no disturbance, no argument, said Indianapolis Police Deputy Chief of Criminal Investigations Craig McCart at a press conference on Friday. He just appeared to randomly start shooting. McCart said that FedEx confirmed that the suspect was a former employee at the facility he targeted and was last employed there in the fall of 2020. The victims have not been identified yet, and authorities are still working to notify some of their next of kin. The attack lasted just 1 or 2 minutes, according to McCart. It was very, very short, he said. The suspect was known to federal and local authorities prior to the shooting, according to CNN, which reported that one of the suspect's family members had even contacted authorities because they were concerned about his potential for violence. FBI Special Agent in Charge Paul Keenan told WTHR that the suspect's mother contacted law enforcement back in March 2020 because she was concerned her son was going to commit suicide by cop. Officers from the Indianapolis Police Department put the suspect on an immediate detention temporary mental health hold, transported him to a hospital, and seized a shotgun that he'd bought 24 hours prior. When police searched his room, they discovered items that were concerning enough to contact the FBI, though it's unclear what those items were. When the FBI interviewed the suspect a month later, they concluded that he did not adhere to any form of racially motivated violent extremism, which is an FBI category within the broader umbrella of domestic terrorism. However, Keenan said the shotgun was not returned to the suspect. So then where did he get the gun? Police arrived on the scene very shortly after the first shots were fired, and while the suspect was still on the scene. When police entered the FedEx facility and encountered the suspect, he immediately took his own life. When officers arrived, they found a very chaotic and active crime team, or they found several victims injured. Which one is it? McCart said at a press conference on Friday morning. Besides the 8 people who were killed, 5 others were injured and taken to the hospital with gunshot wounds, Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department said in a statement Friday morning. 1 person is in critical condition. 2 other people were treated at the scene and released. FBI Special Agent in Charge Paul Keenan said that federal agents were assisting in the investigation, including searching the suspect's residence and interviewing witnesses at the scene. But he declined to offer any information about the possible motive of the shooter, noting that the investigation is still in its early stages. It would be premature to speculate, Keenan said. He added that there was no further threat to the Indianapolis community. Federal agents and other investigators removed evidence from the suspect's residence in East Indianapolis, including computer equipment, according to local news outlets. Family members of FedEx employees gathered at a Holiday Inn Express hotel in the early hours of Friday to see if their loved ones survived the shooting. I'm just worried about my father, Ashley Floyd said, told the Indianapolis Star. I don't know if he's okay. I don't know if he's injured. I don't know why I'm doing the voice. This is a very sad thing. And the voice could be considered mocking, so I apologize. I don't know if he's gone. I'm just scared right now, she said. Wasn't my intention to be mocking. This is horrible. All of this. In a letter to team members on Friday, the chairman and CEO of FedEx, Frederick W. Smith, said that the company had a team on site and that it was making counselors available. This is a devastating day, and words are hard to describe the emotions we all feel, he wrote. The violence in Indiana on Thursday night was one of several high-profile mass shootings to take place over the past few weeks. In March, 8 people were murdered outside Atlanta when a suspect opened fire at different spas. 6 of the people were Asian. Less than a week later, a gunman opened fire at a grocery store in Boulder, Colorado, killing 10 people. Suspects were taken into custody after both shootings. So that's horrible. Moving on from there. Um, my response to that article that I wrote here was that another shooting. I read this article 2 days later. My first thought was there was a shooting in Indianapolis? Question mark. Has it really gotten to the point now where we are so desensitized that the media doesn't even make this top story anymore? Oh, another shooting. It must be Thursday. That's what I had to say about that. A new blast at St. Vincent volcano. Cruise ship helps evacuees is the next story. And this is a story from the Associated Press by one Kristen Dean of the Associated Press and was posted April 16, 2021 at 1:15 p.m. out of Kingston, St. Vincent. La Soufriere volcano shot out another explosive burst of gas and ash on Friday as a cruise ship arrived to evacuate some of the foreigners who had been stuck on the St. Vincent Island coated in ash from a week of violent eruptions. The explosions that began on April 9th forced some 20,000 to flee the northern end of the eastern Caribbean island for shelters and contaminated water supplies across the island. Friday morning's blast wasn't a big explosion compared to the ones that we saw last weekend, but it was big enough to punch a hole through the clouds, said Richard Robertson, lead scientist at the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center in an interview with local NBC radio. Probably up to 8,000 meters, that's 26,000 feet. During a comparable eruption cycle in 1902, explosive eruptions continued to shake the island for months after an initial burst killed some 1,700 people. Though the new eruptions so far have caused no reported deaths among a population that had received official warning a day earlier that danger was imminent. Meanwhile, British, US, and Canadian nationals were being evacuated aboard Royal Caribbean cruises, Celebrity Reflection from the harbor in the Kingstown capital of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What? Oh, that's the name of the ship, I guess, is the Celebrity Reflection. I think this is what that means. The ship was due to arrive Saturday in Dutch Saint Martin. I've been there. As of right now, we are being evacuated for our safety and to keep the island as safe as possible, said Leah Ramsay, a Canadian who was among several students from Trinity School of Medicine who were boarding the ship. Between the school, the government, and the embassies of the US and Canada were being evacuated now. The US Embassy said those aboard would have to make their own travel arrangements home. It also noted in an official statement that the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had recommended against travel on cruise ships because the chance of getting COVID. I think the dangers of a volcano are a little worse. Meanwhile, thousands of locals were stuck in emergency shelters with no idea when they might be able to return home. Levy Lewis, 58, a retired public servant from the town of Fancy, said the eruption had left him trying to get by with practically nothing. I'm just reusing clothing because I didn't walk with much, he said. Plus, water is an issue, so I'm trying to conserve it still. I want to go back home, or to whatever is left of it, he added. I don't think that's going to be a thing. A few people, however, never left, defying evacuation orders, which is insane. Raiden May, a bus conductor in his late 20s who stayed in Sandy Bay throughout the eruption, said he had always planned to stay if the volcano erupted and was trying to protect properties in the community while making occasional trips outside the evacuation zone to pick up water and supplies. What? He said so much ash had fallen that the roofs of houses were collapsing under the weight. One roof might get on like 3 truckloads of sand, he said. We trying to help, but we can't help everybody. So he's staying to help even though it's insane. Okay, cool. I wonder how much of that is just to be close to a volcano eruption to see how cool it is. All right, crazy is my response to that story. Moving on from there, Battlefield 6 rumored to skip PS4 and Xbox One and launch on Game Pass. This is the story out of ScreenRant.com by Brianna Reeves on April 16, 2021. Word from reputable industry source Tom Henderson suggests Battlefield 6 may not make its way to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, though Electronic Arts is reportedly eyeing a day-and-date rollout on Xbox Game Pass. Interestingly, this particular rumor flies in the face of another earlier this year, wherein Henderson claimed 2021's Battlefield may launch across current and last-gen consoles. In general, the Battlefield 6 rumors have yet to calm down over the course of the last several months. Another recent report, for example, describes the newest entry in the military shooter series as a near-future adventure boasting watchful drones and Boston Dynamics-inspired robot technology. In addition, a survey that Electronic Arts sent to fans indicates the publisher and developer DICE have considered exploring a free-to-play mode and a 100-player guild clan system. Now, a new report is raising the question of whether or not fans on last-gen consoles will get to experience any of the Battlefield franchise's alleged new bells and whistles. Industry insider Tom Henderson took to Twitter yesterday saying he's yet to hear anything substantial about the next Battlefield title's launch on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. As a result, Henderson believes a last-gen rollout is not on the cards. One reason for this may rest in Electronic Arts' alleged interest in launching Battlefield 6 day and date on Microsoft's ever-popular Xbox Game Pass subscription service, a move that would boost up player numbers, the leaker added at the end of his post. While Battlefield 6 potentially skipping last gen would be unfortunate for fans who are unable to get their hands on current gen hardware, such a decision does fall in line with EA's previous hints and teases about the project. In an earnings call last fall, EA CEO Andrew Wilson divulged that PS5 and Xbox Series X are allowing Battlefield developers to realize their next-gen vision for the property. DICE's ambitious vision doesn't merely revolve around prettier graphics and faster loading times either. According to Wilson, the team is carefully crafting an experience that features never-before-seen scale, and to help the Stockholm-based group see its plans through to completion, EA recently tapped Need for Speed studio Criterion to assist in the final stretch of the new Battlefield title's development. That's interesting. And that's not actually the first time that EA has touched with Criterion to do the I believe it was Criterion, wasn't it? Criterion. I believe that they worked on Battlefront 2 as well. Yes, they worked on the flying in Battlefront 2, is what they did. And so that's been a regular thing, is that they will work with some of as far as some of the vehicle, I guess, stuff is concerned, they come in to help with the vehicle physics and things like that, it seems. So that's cool. I would be more pissed. I'm actually kind of excited about this. I think I'd be more pissed about it were it not for the fact that as of Thursday, which was yesterday, I got myself an Xbox Series X. It hasn't been delivered yet, obviously, but they came available for a very short amount of time on Best Buy, and I had just gotten my tax return, which was like over $1,000, and so I spent half of it on an Xbox Series X, and the other half I'm just going to save and put towards living and eating and rent and stuff and surviving and trying to get a job and stuff. But yeah, so it's good I'm getting an Xbox Series X. My Xbox One was constantly overheating. People will be like, "Oh man, you're so lucky." I feel like it's more like I earned it because I've been suffering for so long and just holding off and holding off and holding off, and finally the time comes for me to upgrade. And I'm super excited for that. So I will likely be there day one on Xbox Game Pass playing that Battlefield 6 when it comes out. And I can't wait. It sounds great. Sounds exciting. And I bet it's going to be huge. They're saying that it could have 128 players in a match at a time, that they could be aiming for the highest numbers we've seen yet in these type of matchmaking games. And I'm super excited to see that. So that is cool. As you can see, if you're watching the video, I already have the Saturday one for next week set up, the blog ready to go. The structure of it is already set up and ready for me to start adding to when I read stuff. Oh no, I've lost internet connection. That doesn't sound good. What's going on here? Oh no. That's fun. Love it when my internet dies. Well, at least the recording is going to keep going, and then I'll just have to upload that onto YouTube after. Thank God I record this privately on my hard drive as well as do the internet thing. We can keep reading this, though I believe my internet should come back very soon. Come on. Come back now. You know you want to. The next story, PlayStation Store for PS3, PS Vita will not be shut down, Sony announces. That's after last week when it was shut down. It was very sad. Come on. I think it's coming back now. Here it comes. Here it comes. Come on. You know you want it. There we go. Alright, this is a story on Polygon.com, PlayStation Store for PS3, PS Vita will not shut down, Sony announces. This is a story by Owen S. Good on April 19th, 2021. PlayStation Store for PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita will not shut down, Sony announced on Monday, reversing a decision that left many players wondering what would happen to their digital content on the legacy platforms. It's clear that we made the wrong decision here, Jim Ryan, Sony Interactive Entertainment's president, said in a post on the PlayStation blog. Ryan said that PlayStation Store access for the PS3 and PS Vita, launched in 2006 and 2011 respectively, will continue. He knows. I'm surprised that they were launched that far apart. We initially came to the decision to end purchasing support for PS3 and PS Vita. It was born out of a number of factors, including commerce, support challenges for older devices, and the ability for us to focus more of our resources on newer devices where a majority of our gamers are playing on. We see now that many of you are incredibly passionate about being able to continue purchasing classic games on PS3 and PS Vita for the foreseeable future, so I'm glad we were able to find a solution to continue operations. However, the storefront for the PlayStation Portable, which dates back to 2004, will be closed down on July 2nd, 2021, as originally planned. Already, PSP owners had very limited access to the storefront on a platform that has not been supported since 2014. When Sony confirmed the closure at the end of March, PS3 and PS Vita owners were concerned about their digital collections, despite Sony's assurance that all previously purchased content would still be downloadable for those platforms. But they hadn't purchased add-on DLC for a PS3 game, for example. But if they hadn't purchased an add-on DLC for PS3 game, for example, they no longer could do so, even if they still had and enjoyed the main game. Players no longer could have redeemed gift cards through those devices, and all money in the PSN wallet accounts would only be available to buy PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 content. But for now, that doesn't seem to be the case, and that's exciting. Fantastic news, people are saying. I agree. If you ask me, this is a big win. I have both a PS3 and a Vita. Moving on from there, QAnon is spewing racist conspiracies about the Derek Chauvin verdict. Let's hear what they have to say about that. This is a story from Vice.com, because of course it is, from the 21st, written by David Gilbert on the 21st month of the 4th day of the 21st year of the 2000th century. I don't know where I was going with that. Millennia? Year? I don't know. April 21st, 2021 is when this was written. Let's put it that way. 21/4/21 does look pretty cool though, as a date. Within minutes of former cop Derek Chauvin being found guilty of the murder of George Floyd, people all across the U.S. were breathing a sigh of relief and celebrating that justice had been done. But in the online cesspools of QAnon, followers were seething and spinning up predictably racist conspiracy theories to explain away a verdict and a trial they view as simply another matter of the deep state's never-ending effort to take control of the country. The most common theory being shared on QAnon groups on Telegram, Gab, and other fringe websites was that the entire trial was a sham and that Chauvin was simply a crisis actor who was playing a part in some grand conspiracy to dupe American public and spark a space war. I mean, a race war. Though, I mean, a space war would be pretty impressive. I'm just going to go all out and say there is no Derek Chauvin, a Telegram user called Tiffany wrote. It's just another show. This actor is a fall guy. Agenda to stage race war or civil unrest, take your pick. That's interesting. Another user called Christine said that nothing is a coincidence. They are trying to start a race war. The organizer of a massive QAnon conference in Dallas next month, John Sabel, known online as QAnon John. I love how they're the ones trying to start a race war, but you have to try to say that we're the ones trying to start a race war? What? Also weighed in, claiming everyone was simply watching a movie. The silver lining in what's going on to come out of another series or riots and looting is that everyone, regardless of which side of the aisle, will know that this never had anything to do with justice for George Floyd, Sabel wrote. I mean, that's complete bullshit, but okay. What a bunch of losers. Delusional losers. Another influential QAnon promoter known as PP Deluxe wrote that he hadn't followed the trial because that was what the mainstream media wanted him to do, but he still managed to lay out a detailed conspiracy theory, concluding that Floyd's murder and Chauvin's trial were simply a psyop orchestrated by the Freemasons. Over on Gab, the site's founder, Andrew Torba, who has openly courted QAnon followers, said the verdict was a sad day for white people, and white men in particular. God help you if you're a white male in this anti-white country, Torba wrote to his 3.2 million followers. Torba's racist views were shared by many major accounts on Gab, including the influential QAnon promoter known as Major Patriot. And one thing he posted was that feeling when you get the verdict you want, but then realize you have no reason to burn the city down, as if that's what we want to do, is just burn the city down all the time. Many QAnon followers also picked up on comments made by Fox News host Tucker Carlson, who claimed on his show Tuesday night that protesters intimidated the jury into arriving at the guilty verdict. It's a claim that was echoed by many QAnon supporters. One member of the influential We the Media channel said, "I don't think any police officer can have a fair trial due to them by our constant..." Even though plenty of police officers have had unfair trials in their favor, that you're just completely ignoring completely. What the fuck? I don't think the public should be jury because of situations like this. I'm just saying he didn't get a fair trial. He was already tried by the judges, juries of the media, and politicians. It's insane. Like this guy saying that God help you if you're a white male in this anti-white country, because yeah, heaven forbid you're white and you murder black people, then people charge you for murder. Like, what the hell is going on with this world? I hate it. A poll conducted by the We the Media Telegram channel assessed whether its 215,000 subscribers thought Chauvin was guilty. The vast majority voted that he was innocent, and by that vast majority means 76%. Over on the Great Awakening, a QAnon message board, users had another theory to share. One user called Blind Marksman wrote that the trial verdict was an attempt at distraction designed to divert attention from the election audit currently taking place in Arizona that QAnon followers firmly believe will result in Trump returning to the White House. In the absence of any new messages from the movement's anonymous leader, Q hasn't posted an update in more than 4 months. QAnon followers have become skilled practitioners of interpreting real-world news events in a way that proves their conspiracy theories are true. This was seen recently with QAnon claims that the container ship that blocked the Suez Canal was full of children being trafficked by Hillary Clinton and other elites who are part of their imagined global pedophile ring. They also spun up conspiracies around the death of Prince Philip, claiming he died after being vaccinated for COVID-19, Ivanka Trump getting a COVID-19 vaccine, claiming that the picture was a fake, and the massive explosion at Beirut's port last year that killed 215 people, claiming that the explosion was linked to a global Jewish conspiracy to take over the world. Was it the space laser? Did they use the space laser to blow up Beirut's port? Is that what happened? I think that is where that came from, actually. Insane. Absolutely insane. Moving on from there. Tucker Carlson lost it after Derek Chauvin was found guilty. Oh, I forgot to say that my response to that last article was, what a bunch of bullshit from a bunch of real evil fucking twats. Moving on to Tucker Carlson's brand of bullshit. Another evil fucking twat. Tucker Carlson lost it after Derek Chauvin was found guilty. This is a story by Paul Bless on Vice.com, April 21st, 2021. As most of the nation breathed a collective sigh of relief that ex-Minneapolis cop Derek Chauvin was convicted of murdering George Floyd Tuesday, Fox News host Tucker Carlson wore his disappointment on his sleeve. During his Tuesday night broadcast, Carlson claimed that Chauvin was convicted after less than 2 full days of deliberation because the jurors felt they were in danger. Called the Floyd protests an attack on civilization, absurd, and then abruptly ended an interview with former New York City corrections official who suggested Chauvin's killing of Floyd was excessive because let's not forget that Tucker Carlson is the Piers Morgan brand of asshole, where if they come across anyone who makes sense and brings reality and common sense into their arguments, they just shut that shit down. They get up, they walk out, or they cut them off on the phone, or they hang it up, or they do whatever they gotta do to shut that shit down, because fuck reality, fuck common sense. Carlson kicked off his show with the claim that the jurors in the trial came to an ununanimous and unequivocal decision this afternoon. Please don't hurt us. The jurors spoke for many in this country. Everyone understood perfectly that, well, the consequences of an acquittal in this case, Carlson said, sounding like, was that Tigger? Not really, but we'll go with it. After a year of burning and looping and murder by BLM, that was never in doubt. Yes, that's right. A year of burning and looting and murder. It's funny because since last summer, the only looting and burning and murder that I saw was what was happening on January 6th at the insurrection. Carlson then dished up his usual dystopian portrait of America's cities. No mob has the right to No mob has the right to destroy our cities. No politician or media figure has the right to intimidate our jury, he said, and no political party has the right to impose a different standard of justice on its own supporters. He added, which is things that they do all the time. He added, those things are all unacceptable in America when it's not being done by conservatives anyway. All of them are happening now. If they continue to happen, decent and productive people will leave. Go. Happily, just go. We don't want you anymore. Not in the States, not in Canada. We don't want any of your conservative asses. Make your own fucking country in Africa or something. I don't give a shit anymore. Buy out one of those nations. Then those people who are starving there can come here and live here instead. And we can do a swap. And you guys can make your crazy nation in the desert there with your money and your power, and you'll be just fine, and we won't give a shit. He added, those things are, oh, we already read that. The country as you know it will be over. So we must stop this current insanity. It's an attack against civilization 5. It is. People just constantly trying to get people not to play that game, but it's such a good game. Over the course of the show, Carlson brought on a variety of right-wing ringers popular with his audience to agree with him, including Glenn Beck and Candace Owens. Here you have to consider a murder case through the lens of politics. When you get to that point, haven't you already given up on civilization? Carlson asked Owens in his usual stoic and drama-free manner, much as how I'm reading it. Owens called the verdict mob justice and blamed the media and Democrats for it. Oh, there's a video.
Candace Owens is the host of Candace. We're happy to have her on tonight to assess what we're watching. Now, Candace Owens,
I hate
in
you.
a country like ours,
you suck.
very top. I mean, this is
You're
the
terrible.
first world country that's ever been.
The best first world country that's ever been. What a bunch of bullshit. That's Canada, sir. Okay. The verdict now means the Democrats can get whatever. The verdict now means the Democrats can get whatever they want. Oh, because I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that takes over the top. I was doing a gesture that was implying. I'm trying to imply this guy is hit too many times in the head, dumb. Like Rocky. No, Asian. That I'm not trying to imply that he is mentally handicapped in offensive way. But anyway, the verdict now means the Democrats can get whatever they want because they can create a narrative and treat people like pawns and get them to say, if we don't get what we want, we'll riot. We'll really loot. Yeah. We will send these people out like soldiers to destroy your neighborhood. It's starting to sound like a Down syndrome. I'm really not trying to make fun of people with mental handicaps here. I need to curb that voice a little bit in a different direction. All right, anyway. This was not a fair trial, Owens added. No person can say this was a fair trial. Yeah, whatever. One guest whose opinions Carlson didn't have time for was Ed Gavin, a former deputy sheriff in New York City and official with the city's Department of Corrections. Gavin called Chauvin's murder of Floyd pure savagery and called for more medical training for cops. We have to change the way we deal with people, Gavin said. I've used force on literally almost 500 people in my 21-year career. I've never had anybody go unconscious. That was clearly excessive and justified use of force. I think the verdict was just. So this is a guy who knows what he's talking about. And Carlson just freaked out over it. He's like, in my opinion, we need to. How about law enforcement? How about enforce law? Do we need to do that? Here, let's hear that.
Ed Gavin is a former deputy sheriff at the New York City Sheriff's Department. Joins us with his perspective on what this means for law enforcement. Again, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Who's going to become a cop going forward, do you think?
Well, I think people will still become police officers. This really is a learning experience for everyone. Let's face it, what we saw in that video was pure savagery. I mean, the documentary evidence showed the police officer putting his knee on the perpetrator's neck while he was rear cuffed and his stomach was on the ground, causing positional asphyxia. So what I'd like to see, Tucker, is I'd like to see more training for police. I'd like to see the police trained as EMTs, like in the fire department. For example,
watching
in the New York
Tucker
City
with
Fire
this.
Department, we have firefighters that are EMTs.
It's just his
But
ridiculous
who's on the
voice.
scene
His
first
face.
in most of these situations? It's the police. So in reviewing the tape, what I noticed was that the police officer removed the subject, Mr. Floyd, from his vehicle, and he was able to handcuff him, and then he was able to seat him on the ground, and he was handcuffed. At that point, they should have left him there. You know, there was no reason to move him. Things of this nature. And department, I've never had any documentary evidence.
Do we enforce the law? Okay, do we need to do that? So hold on, wait. So slow down. Do we enforce the law? Like, let's say people are going through the windows of Macy's and the cops are just standing there. Do they resign
No.
because obviously their honor is being violated, but they're not doing anything about it? When do they start doing something about it and protecting everyone else, not just George Floyd?
No. I want people to protect. I want the police to protect people. But when specifically what we're dealing with a person in custody who was handcuffed and he was subdued.
Right.
At that point, you know, we have to take a different tact. And one of the things I just want to suggest, Tucker,
I'm totally willing to believe that. Yep.
Yeah, the U.S. Department of Justice came out with a position.
I just realized that I muted myself for a whole chunk of that because I muted myself while that video was playing and then I didn't unmute it when I stopped. Wonderful. So what did you miss? You missed me say that hashtag cancel Fox News, hashtag cancel Tucker Carlson. Repeat it loud and repeat it far and repeat it wide. Can we cancel them? Probably not, because cancel culture isn't real, and if something happens to them, it'll be because of their own doing and not us stomping and screaming in outrage. That said, we can at least give them something else to cry about. Hashtag cancel Fox News. Hashtag cancel Tucker Carlson. I already said that, but I'm saying it again now. Sorry that I muted for a minute there. Sorry about that a lot. As for Russia and China, the next storyline, no, Russia and China didn't weaponize QAnon. It's a homegrown nightmare. It was an article on Vice.com. I'm not going to read it. I didn't agree with it. I'm unconvinced. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but they probably did. I'm not saying they created the Q movement, but it's pretty easy and an easy blow to make fake accounts on social media and be like, did you see that the guy saying Biden is a pedophile? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but that makes sense to me. And that's how fake news spreads beyond the fringe. The article is very much like, well, they could have used a VPN. We don't know where the stuff came from. It's like, but I mean, that doesn't mean that they didn't do it. Like, anyway, so yeah, the final story. She dreamed of being a doctor in New York, then she was attacked with acid. I cannot believe that. Sorry about that, going multiple minutes silence there because I muted myself while that video was playing. So yes, on this is a story by Vice.com by Pallavi Pandir, the April 23rd, 2021. On March 17th, the man doused acid on a 21-year-old Pakistani-American college student in her driveway in Long Island, New York. He ran off, never to be seen again. The woman, identified as Nafaya Akram, suffered burns on her face, eyes, neck, and hands. Over a month later, the assailant remains at large. Now, Ikram's family has gone public with a plea to mobilize people to help with medical costs and catch the attacker. Sheikh Ikram, the father, told New York Post that it was not a random attack. It's a planned attack, he said. Why did they wait for her to come home? The incident comes as several cases of anti-Asian American violence are being reported across the country. One report showed an increase of nearly 150% in anti-Asian American hate crimes last year in 16 of the country's most populous cities. While the majority of attacks have targeted people of East Asian descent, there have also been incidents against those of South Asian heritage. Last month, 3 women coughed on and pepper sprayed Subakar Kadka, an Uber driver of Nepali descent. In another case, also last month, a 66-year-old Uber Eats driver, water break, and Pakistani immigrant Muhammad Anwar died after 2 teenage girls killed him in an armed carjacking attempt. Ikram, who aspires to be a doctor, spoke publicly about the ordeal this week. I felt my chest being ripped out of my soul, the medical student from Hofstra University told AFP. Ikram had spent up to 3 weeks in the hospital after the incident. My whole life changed in a matter of 5 minutes, she told CBS New York. I wanted to know, what's the reason? What could I have possibly done to somebody? Ikram's case has now triggered widespread calls, including those by celebrities and politicians, for an investigation. Over the last 3 days, several support groups and individuals have been amplifying the case. This is the nightmare of any parent, said Indian-American TV personality Padma Lakshmi, in an appeal to her 1.1 million Instagram followers. Horrible. Acid was thrown in her face. Her whole face is injured and burned. They don't even know if she'll be able to see properly because she had contacts in, and the acid burned and melted the contacts in her eyes, Lakshmi said. She's been in the hospital for a greater part of this month, Lakshmi said in her video, adding that she has known the family for a decade. More importantly, she has lost a year of college. The attack took place on the night of March 17th when Ikram was helping her mother unload the car. In footage captured by a neighbor's surveillance camera, the suspect was seen in a hoodie and carrying a cup containing dark liquid. Oh god, I don't want to watch that. That's horrifying. This whole thing is horrifying. The acid burned Ikram's mouth, tongue, and throat, which led to breathing problems. Had the acid gotten into Faya's lungs, she would have died, Anjum wrote in the GoFundMe page. That's horrible. She also added that when her parents tried to help her, the acid burned their hands and forearms too. If her parents were not home to help her and call 911 right away, she would not have made it, Anjum wrote. We don't know if Nafaya will ever regain vision. This is horrible. So horrible. Oh my god. And I can't believe it. Who would do that to a person? Melted her contacts to her eyes. What the fuck? And what really fucks me up is that mention of how they're trying to help mobilize people to help with medical costs. Because consider this. In Canada, this is what I was going to say when I realized that I'd muted myself last time. In Canada, when you get attacked or something like that, and you have to go to the hospital, you're hurt, you're injured, um, it's a life-shattering trauma. It's a huge trauma. But then it's over and they heal you and you're better and you get to go home and everything's fine. But in the States, you go through this horrible trauma. That's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And then you have to pay them for it. You have to pay them for your for for them to for you to like she experienced this horrible disaster. Now she has to pay for it. Unimaginable. Absolutely unimaginable. Like, this is why healthcare is so necessary to be free for everyone. Horrible, horrible, horrible story, and I hate it. And now you've heard that story too, and you can, of course, read any of these stories by going to 99geek.ca slash, nope, just 99geek.ca, and then you can find all of these stories. Also, if you want to catch my if you want to get my opinions on the news before the blog comes out or in between when each blog comes out, if you want to get more of my opinions on different news stories and also see some of the news that doesn't make the list each week, then you can always subscribe to me at twitter.com/Andrew Geczy. That's ANDREWGECZY. That's A as in Andrew, N as in Noble, D as in Drew, R as in Robot, E as in Elephant, W as in Whoa. Um, G is in garage, E is in elephant, C is in car, Z is in zebra, and Y is in why not. If you go there, you can see my reactions to all kinds of news stories that don't make the list, and even some that do make the list. And you can get those reactions first by following me on Twitter. You can also get my reactions to all my TV stuff on Twitter as well. Reactions that sometimes don't make it here either. Moving on from that to the Geekly blog. This didn't work out so good, clearly in multiple ways. I accidentally muted myself for multiple minutes. I apologize for that. Hopefully that won't be an issue. I'll put a warning up so people know to just skip ahead until they find my voice again. I'm still working to figure out what timing works best. I wanted to watch both Mortal Kombat and Falcon Winter Soldier to get them reviewed in time for this, and in so doing, I am releasing this much later than I intended. It is now 9 o'clock. Wow. So I'm going to make a change again to the regular schedule. From now on, I will be releasing the Geekly Weekly every Saturday morning or early afternoon, noonish. Then my writing day will be Sunday, a usually quiet day, and will release Monday morning. That will be the new schedule starting with the last of Princess Mirende this week. You can expect it Monday morning and every Monday after that. Moving on to the Geekly Weekly comments and questions and stats. Someone has been reading my books on Amazon. I really appreciate it. In just the past week, they have given me literally thousands of page views. They started with suburban fantasy and continue to read urban fantasy. I hope they keep going. And if you don't believe me, I can show you and you can be like, whoa. A what? See, nobody ever reads my stuff. These are all free sales. So when I make a book free, people buy it. That's the release, I believe, of Dakota Slade. Is that one. I believe. Moving on from there. But yes, so as you can see here, if you're watching the video, which most people won't be, one assumes. But if you're in the audio, you can see that there are, it's a graph that shows no page reads for months. And then suddenly at the end, there's 487 on one day, and then 834 on another day, and then 204 on another day, and 51 on another day. Presumably that's all one person. It would be really coincidental if two people decided to both start reading my book at the same time. And it was like, it starts off being suburban fantasy, and they read the whole thing, and then it moves on to urban fantasy act 1, and they've been reading that. So hopefully they'll move on from there to urban fantasy act 2, and maybe even try some of my other books. That would be really cool. It would be even cooler if they wrote a review and let me know what they think of what they're reading. That would be amazing. I would love to hear what they think. Get some criticisms or whatever, or just some feedback. It would be huge. It would mean the world to me, mean more to me than money. Other than that, my numbers aren't changing much. My podcast got less hits than usual, but my Patreon got slightly more hits than usual. So that's about it. My life, as usual, is just a roller coaster. I know the last time I released my writing, it started with a bit of a rant because I was having a really rough day. And my hard drive failed last week after I released a Geekly Weekly. Or my main hard drive failed after I was trying to save another one of my hard drives. I'm still working to try and get it back. Let me see if I can pull that up on the video, which won't matter to people who aren't on the video. Nope, I can't even show it. But it exists. Can I not? There it is. That's what can you see that? No, can't see that? Okay. Yeah, no, I can't show you. But that's fine. Who cares? Because most people don't watch this video anyway. But yeah, I had a rough time last week after I posted my Geekly Weekly, and it's been hard, and I've been struggling, and just trying to keep it together. And I'm still trying to repair this hard drive that failed on me. But then, I mean, just as I keep calling it a roller coasters go down, roller coasters go up. So, I mean, as I mentioned, I got my tax return, and I put some of that money towards an Xbox Series X, and I'm going to save the rest of the money for myself. Money-wise, my money's not too bad right now. That's it. I'm not trying to say I don't want people to subscribe to my Patreon for $1 if you can. It would be huge. It means so much to me and mean that people are supporting me, and that would be great. My name is Andrew Geczy, and my brand is 99% Geek, found at 99geek.ca. I'm a writer writing monthly chapters of novels like episodes of TV shows, releasing them in 4 weekly segments, a teaser and 3 acts on Mondays on my Patreon page. Every month, it's a different book over a range of genres, and they sometimes even cross over and connect. At the end of the month, the finished chapter is added to the PDFs attached at the bottom of every post. Finally, the finished books are self-published on Amazon. There's a dark fantasy story about a post-apocalyptic world where powerful royals rule and enslave the remaining people struggling to survive on the last remaining landmass. There's also a sci-fi story about a people on a dying world who have built a ship to a new one, but their project is almost brought down by a terrorist organization within their own ranks. Finally, there's a crossover story where characters from my other books are brought into the distant future where the princess of a far advanced civilization, one that lives in a solar system-sized megastructure around a Dyson sphere, needs help defeating her twisted, power-hungry brother. And all these stories will be outside the paywall for all to enjoy as new episodes release weekly, and the finished chapters will be attached to the bottom of every post on the site in convenient PDF format, readable on computers, tablets, ebook readers, and phones at the end of the month. But that's not all my stories. There's also urban fantasy tales about a teenage girl who gets turned into a vampire against her will, or a scorned lover investigating paranormal phenomena, or a journalist covering news and politics in the Middle East. And there's a fantasy story about a fallen angel trying to stop the end of the world. And all these stories are published and available on Amazon, and are also safe and sound behind the paywall in PDF format attached to an archive at the top of my Patreon page. Only viewable by subscribers, my entire library of work, thousands of pages worth, is easily accessible to every subscriber at any level. There's even a Geekly Weekly blog which covers all the news you may have missed over the week, as well as ranks the week's worth of television and makes predictions on what new pop culture things might be in the public consciousness for the next week. It releases every Saturday at noonish. Finally, I do video game streams, both multiplayer matchmaking as well as single-player campaign playthroughs. You can see me play games like Final Fantasy, Call of Duty, Hitman, and more. Watch them as they happen at twitch.tv/wingcommander4, or wait until I release the recorded videos on days when I have nothing else to release. And you can see it all in one place. So stay tuned and subscribe. It's only $1, and the support you show will go a very long way, I promise. There are also higher tiers. Give $5 one month and you can name a character or a location or suggest a thing you might want to see. Basically, you get to give a noun, and then I promise to incorporate that noun into one of my stories somehow. Maybe not the same month you give the suggestion, but within 3 months guaranteed. No matter how crazy, you can't sabotage me, I promise. Think of it like a fun improv game, and you can keep giving nouns for every month you pay at the $5 tier. Or if you give $10, you don't get 2 nouns, but you can give a description to go with your noun. Describe the personality of your character, or the look of your location, or the importance of your item. For $10, you get a noun and a description. You can also give $1 towards supporting my efforts at video game streaming or my weekly blog if that's more where your interests lie. I'm as poor as it gets, living paycheck to paycheck and sometimes starving, so I understand if you are too. I don't want to take food out of your mouth. Your attention is enough. Say something, comment here, at the very least follow me on Twitter at Andrew Geczy or Instagram at WingCommander4. Live long and prosper, may the force be with you. Long live Marceline the Vampire Queen. Remember that Kong bows to no one, but Godzilla is king of all monsters. We are the 99% Geek. The next Geekly Weekly will be Saturday, May 1st. Next writing will be Monday morning, April 26th. Thank you.